The Gilded Frost of Garmisch. February 1936 arrived in Garmisch-Partenkirchen not with the soft grace of winter, but with a calculated, crystalline precision. Elias, a veteran journalist whose eyes had seen too much of the world's shifting tides, stood on the train platform as the steam hissed against the frozen ground. The town had been scrubbed of its Bavarian grit, replaced by an unsettling, manufactured perfection. He didn't see a sporting venue. He saw a stage where the scenery was being bolted down with iron resolve. Maren stepped off the express from Berlin, her coat buttoned tight against the alpine chill. She was a junior attaché, sent to observe the pulse of a nation that seemed to be beating in a frighteningly new rhythm. Elias met her amidst the throng of tourists, his face a map of weary lines. Above them, the Olympic 5 rings were intertwined with stark, angular symbols, a marriage of peace and power that felt like a held breath. They were soon joined by Victor, a local official whose smile never quite reached his eyes. He led them through the town square, pointing out the freshly painted facades and the absence of any unpleasant signs. Victor spoke of a new era of hospitality, his voice booming with a rehearsed enthusiasm. Maren watched him closely, noting how the townspeople moved with a stiff, practiced cheerfulness whenever he passed. As they walked, Elias pulled Victor aside near a fountain. He asked about the rumors of dissent, of the people who had quietly vanished before the international press arrived. Victor's expression hardened for a fleeting second, a crack in the porcelain mask. He leaned in, his tone dropping to a whisper that was colder than the mountain wind, reminding Elias that during the games, there was only room for one truth. The day of the opening ceremony dawned under a sky of heavy, bruised clouds. Elias took his place in the high press box, looking down at the great Olympic Stadium carved into the base of the mountains. Below him, thousands of spectators moved in unison, a sea of wool and fur. The rhythmic thud of marching boots on the packed snow replaced the expected sounds of laughter, echoing like a drumbeat of things to come. Maren sat in the diplomatic section, her knuckles white as she gripped her program. When the German leader entered the box high above the arena, the roar that erupted was not the sound of sports fans, but a primal, synchronized thunder. She felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the temperature. The air crackled with a fervor that felt less like a celebration and more like a mobilization disguised as a game. That evening, Elias and Maren retreated to a small, dim tavern on the edge of town, far from the floodlights and the fanfare. The warmth of the hearth felt hollow. "They have turned the mountains into a fortress of propaganda," Elias murmured, staring into his glass. Maren nodded, the reflection of the flickering fire in the window pane overlapping with the shadows of the soldiers patrolling the street outside. Victor found them there, his uniform slightly rumpled but his energy undiminished. He sat with them, speaking of the records that would be broken and the biological superiority he believed the results would prove. Elias watched Victor's hands, which were restless, constantly smoothing the tablecloth as if trying to flatten the world into a shape he understood. To Victor, the athletes were not people, but instruments of a grander design. Late that night, Elias and Maren walked toward the great ski jump, which stood like a giant skeletal ghost against the alpine stars. The silence of the peaks was profound, yet it felt like the silence before a landslide. "The world is watching the show," Maren said, her voice small in the vastness. "But what happens when the torches go out and the snow melts?" Elias looked at the dark silhouette of the jump, knowing the answer was already written in the wind. As the sun rose on the first day of competition, the valley was flooded with a brilliant, deceptive light. Elias stood on a ridge, watching the first skiers descend the slopes like tiny, fleeting sparks. The IV Winter Olympic Games had officially begun, a masterpiece of optics and iron. He pulled his collar up, looking past the flags and the cheering crowds toward the jagged horizon, where the long shadows of the future were already starting to stretch.